Welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, share with a friend. Thank you very much. And today, General Manager Tom Fitzgerald had his media availability, did a little press conference to wrap up free agency, the draft, all that fun stuff, and we'll get right into it. I thought, some of what he said was expected. Some was a little disappointing. And, we'll just go over it. I mean, overall, I think he might need some public speaking lessons, perhaps a strategist. A lot of political people have strategists, and they kind of go through the anticipation of what people might say and how to react. I don't know that he does that very well. To me, he always looks like a kid in the principal's office when he's up there. But, today was mostly the same. But early on, someone asked him that he had talked about the key points he wanted to address, and they asked him if he did that. And he said, I believe we did that. A new coach, goaltending, depth D, harder D, bottom six to not be from vanilla. We've checked those boxes for sure. And on that front, he did. We got Sheldon Keefe. We got Markstrom. We got Pesci. We got Dillon. And we got Kovacevic kind of as an insurance piece. And the bottom six definitely is beefy and ready for war. So I do like that, and I do think, he kind of hit the nail on the head there. The one thing that I don't think he addressed, and it's the hole that we all are aware of, is that top six forward. The top six forward never came. That comes up later in the conversation. But then Fitzy goes on to talk about how Dougie and Palat picked New Jersey and how we're building something here, yada, yada. And, I'm just curious to know, personally, what exactly are you building, and what is the construction timeline? Because I think a lot of us, want to see this team push for a cup now, and it just seems like Fitz is always glamorizing the future, and this didn't make me feel any more comfortable about the Devils really trying to win a cup right now. I mean, there's a difference between being competitive and being a true contender, and it seems like right now he's kind of happy being just competitive. That's the way it comes across to me anyway. I could be wrong, but I would love to know exactly where his head's at with that. He was asked about Dawson Mercer's contract and when that will be done, and then he went on to say RFAs are not going anywhere. They're always the last priority, blah, blah, blah. That'll get worked on soon, so we'll probably hear something about the Dawson Mercer contract sooner than later. And then this is where it got interesting, and then it started to get a little more discouraging for me personally, and I know a lot of others as well. He was asked about the top six, and he said, we have plenty top six players. I mean, I couldn't disagree with that more. I would argue you don't have a legitimate top six. Listen, I'm not complaining. Our forward group is great. The core is great. But I do feel like the general consensus was that we definitely needed a top six forward, and we did not get one. So for him to say we have plenty top six players, we don't even have six. So, when I hear plenty, I think we have more than that. And the reality is we do not. Could we win despite that? Absolutely. I think we could, and I hope that we do. But I think to say you have plenty is a bit of a stretch. And then he said, and this is where I was like, oh, my God. He said, we've got enough complementary top six players, guys that can play with true top six guys. I mean, great. It sounds like patchwork to me. I mean, that's not a legitimate top six guy. Do I think we have guys that could fill in there if someone was injured, something like that? Sure. But to have these guys in a top six role when they're not true top six players is obviously less than ideal. I mean, let's call it for what it is. That was a little discouraging to me. And then he was like, look around the league. How many teams really have a true top six? I mean, I would argue that there's plenty of teams that have them. But, it was just kind of trying to put out the fire, I suppose, and more GM speak. But I just thought that was kind of disheartening when he says we have plenty top six players. Like, no, we don't. We absolutely do not. Then he was asked about Holtz and Schmid, and then he was rambling on. And when he was talking about Holtz, he said he believes player development can happen at the NHL level and that perhaps Alexander Holtz should have spent more time in the AHL. And then when they were trying to kind of put someone to the fire for it, he said, I don't think it's any one person or division within the team. Sometimes the players have to look at themselves and take accountability, yada, yada. And so it's unfortunate. Guys all know how I felt about Holtz. I thought he definitely had some upside. I would have liked to see him stick around for a little bit longer before we pulled the plug at only 22 years old, but they decided to move on. And then when talking about Schmid, he said that he felt the goalie depth made him expendable, and they moved on from Schmid. Didn't expect him to, talk too much about that. Then he was asked about the acquisition of Tatar, and he said, we know he could play in the top 6 and fill other roles. And so, that's when we got Tatar, it's pretty much what everyone thought. This is our top 6 ad. And in the end, I like Tatar. I think he's a great player. I'm not nearly as excited for him coming back as a lot of the people are. It seems like a lot of our fan bases get super emotional or whatever with these reunions. And I like Tatar. $1.8 million, not a big deal. But if that's our top 6 ad, that's underwhelming and disappointing. A lot of people were expecting a legitimate top 6. We got Tatar. It is what it is. I think he will be serviceable, but not a true top 6 player at this point, I don't think, at all. And then this is where, and the next portion here is where people like Joe Stalia are going to go nuts. This is all just rocket fuel for people like Joe Stalia to go crazy on Fitzgerald. Joe Stalia was blowing up my phone during the press conference. I was actually listening to the press conference in the car driving to development camp this morning. Check it out on the channel later. I'll have a bunch of videos and things about development camp. But I'm listening to Fitz while driving to the arena, and Joe Stalia is just lighting my phone up with just venom and hate. Venom and hate, and a lot of it came at this juncture when they started talking about replacing Toffoli's goals. Fitz said, I wasn't worried about offense with this group. We have enough offense here. A guy like Dawson Mercer is going to have a chance to grow and explode, hopefully. It's another hope. Hopefully, right? I hope he does too. But it seems like we're in another situation where Fitz is hoping for something to happen to get the desired outcome. I don't like to hear that personally. And then they talked about how it's going to have to be by committee. And then he referred to the core. Jack, Nico, Timo. These guys are going to have to step up. I thought it wasn't the best answer to the question. And like I said, Joe Stalia just lighting the phone up. He's a Toffoli guy, so I knew it was coming. As soon as I heard it, I said, oh, here we go. And sure enough, he might call into a later show. I don't know what's going on with that. He's trying to rant. I don't know how that's going to go. But then he was asked about the injuries. He said Dougie is 100% and that Jack and Timo are on track to be ready in September, so that's always positive news. The boys back fully healthy with these additions. I'm expecting big things for this team next season. I really am. And then someone asked, are these moves not just for regular season success, but playoffs? And then this is where I was discouraged a little bit again. He said, we're just trying to take one step at a time. Playoffs is here, but we need to get there first. We have to get there. And this is where I'm just like, come on, man. It seems like a very defeatist mentality to me. Like, we're just happy to make the playoffs. Like, bullshit. I'm not happy to make the playoffs. Are you guys? Let me know. I'm not happy to make the playoffs. Just making the playoffs should be the gold standard. It should be playoffs or bust every single season. Making the playoffs should not be something, that you hang your hat on. Like, oh, we made the playoffs. That should be our birthright. We're going to the playoffs every year. Now it's how far are you going to go? So to say we have to get there and, just kind of seem happy to make it, like, no, that's a defeatist mentality and a loser mentality. And it comes through when he talks. Again, this is where I think, maybe some public speaking classes or a strategist to kind of role play with him before he goes up there, because this sort of thing I think is demoralizing to a lot of people, and it gives it puts the battery in the back of the haters like Joe Stalia to come for blood, because these aren't the things you're supposed to be saying. Acting like we're just happy to get there is not it, man. That is not it. We have to push to go far and keep going far. Keep getting back, not just to make it. And that was kind of discouraging and kind of pissed me off a little bit. Then he was asked about the center depth, and they said, they expect Halla and Lazar to be the third and fourth line centers. That won't come as a surprise to anyone, really. They briefly talked about Cotter. Fitzy said he brings versatility, and he probably doesn't see him as a center, but it's nice to know that he could play center in a pinch. Then he was asked about Sheldon Keefe's role in free agency, and Fitz said that Sheldon Keefe was very high on Nason, and apparently Nason's going to be getting some power play time, it seems, from what he said. I don't know that I would have predicted that with all the other guys we have, but maybe we'll see Nason on the power play. And then they were talking about Luke Hughes, and they said the assumption is that Pesce would play with Luke. And then Fitz was like, well, I don't know who's going to play with who. I have no idea. And then he went on to say Luke has to take a step in defending. Defending comes first over offense, and that they haven't talked about the pairs yet. But I found that interesting, that he said Luke has to take a step in defending, and defending comes first over offense, because obviously a lot of us last season were a little disappointed with some of his play in our own end as, He seems like he's focused on charging up there in the offensive zone and trying to get some points. Meanwhile, we're getting goals scored on us left and right. So hopefully, Luke does take that step, gets a little more defensively responsible as a defenseman, and depending on who he plays with, he should be a little more insulated than he was for most of last year. And hopefully his development continues, and hopefully he becomes the stud that we all think he's going to be. He's shown flashes of it. Just got to tighten up that D. And then he was asked about Luke's potential contract extension, and Fitzy said his brain wasn't on the extension yet and that Luke knows he's a lifer here and it'll eventually get taken care of. I'm curious. Let me know what you guys think Luke's extension is going to be. I've seen people, put out wild things. $9 million plus, I think people have been speculating. Like, that seems completely insane to me. Luke's going to make more than Jack? I mean, my God. I was hoping, maybe I'm delusional, but I was hoping he was going to sign for, mid-sevens or something. 7 million, 7.5. People are talking about $9 million. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. And then someone asked him if he was done in the open market, and he said, yeah, right now I am. And then he went on to talk about how cap space-wise we're in a good place where we could be flexible down the road if something happens, yada, yada. Leave a little money left in the emergency fund, if you will. And then someone asked what his message to fans would be on July 3rd, and he said, I think they should be proud of what we've put together and that the team we've assembled is reminiscent of past Devils teams. And I would say, to me, it's definitely reminiscent of past Devils teams in terms of having character guys, grinders, things of that. So I do agree with him there, and I'm an old school guy. You guys all know this. So I've been a proponent of, trying to not exactly copy, but sort of take inspiration from some of the past Devils teams. And a lot of the characteristics were having these grinder types and these character guys throughout the lineup. We've lacked that for a while. We've been soft. We've been getting pushed around. Fitzy told everyone he was going to get heavier, edgier, more violent. We certainly are. And hopefully it shows in the standings next season. Again, I have high hopes for the team. I think Markstrom could be great for us for 2 years. The defense is fully revamped. The bottom six is nice and beefy. The only thing that, again, is a little worrisome or troublesome, in my opinion, is the fact that we did not get the top six. And so with Toffoli leaving, and now we traded out Holtz, not that Holtz was guaranteed to be a top six guy, but I thought he might get a shot there this season. Toffoli's gone. He wasn't replaced. Holtz, the plug got pulled, and then we brought in Tatar. So, to me, it's a hard one because clearly the top six got worse. I mean, you can't deny it. We lost Toffoli. And I did not want to bring him back for the money he was getting paid. A few people did. It wasn't worth it. But the reality is that is production and a slot in the lineup gone, and we're going to need guys to step up. It's unfortunate that we couldn't address that properly in a trade or free agency, but it seems like this is the roster we will be heading into the 24-25 season with, and I think we're going to be very competitive, and I think we will compete for the division. Assuming we stay healthy and no other unforeseen nonsense happens, I think we are going to be a very good team. A lot of people are predicting doomsday and we're going to miss the playoffs. I just can't get on that train. I mean, I think that's psychotic. I've said 12 times at least now on the channel in the past few weeks. I fully expect the 24-25 New Jersey Devils to be much, much closer to the franchise record-setting 22-23 New Jersey Devils than the debacle nightmare 23-24 Devils of the season that just passed. I mean, everything went wrong for us. And again, not to make excuses for it, but the reality is when you have that many injuries, it's going to be hard to be competitive. Fitz kept his hand in his pockets, hoped and wished, didn't get a goalie, we drown, and that's it. Hopefully it's a throwaway season, and hopefully we don't see a season like that for quite some time. But let me know in the comments what you thought about Fitzy's press conference, anything that stuck out to you. Let me know what you guys think. Put in your official predictions for the Devils season. How many points will the 24-25 New Jersey Devils have next year? Put it out there in the comments as well. Anything and everything New Jersey Devils hockey, throw it out there in the comments. I'll be back soon. I have a bunch of stuff in the chamber here. Development camp, schedule review, some other things. Throw it all out there. I will talk to you all soon. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go Devils.